I'm Jeff Hunt. He's Bill Thorpe. It's Monday.
Are we affordable yet? I don't have a lot of faith in that.
Question there at the very end of last hour. What is the least affordable housing market in America, since Colorado is number 3? 49 as far as worst affordability. So number 2 in the nation is New Jersey. California, number 1 least affordable housing market, which you can't say, well, it's lack of space, because California has lots of space that it could develop. It is regulations. That is a big part of it. You see it in the Pacific Palisades rebuild, that they just can't even get the permits to finally start rebuilding. It's so difficult. They can't get the bullet train. It is part of the way Democrats, is in their DNA. They sit in committee meetings and they feel like they can centrally plan something, and it ends up with regulation on top of regulation on top of regulation. Colorado, the 6th most regulated state in the nation, and it just becomes a headache. The only people that can navigate all these are big firms with lots of lawyers. It just doesn't work. Everything gets more expensive as a result of it. All right. Coming up this hour, we're honored to talk to John Stonestreet, president of Colson Center. He'll be joining us. He's got an opinion piece in the Daily Citizen. By the way, Daily Citizen, great publication. Go check him out. This is the daily publication out of Focus on the Family. But he's got a piece in there on Nick Fuentes, the impact he's having on men. We'll talk with John Stonestreet. Coming up now, though, is time for the news.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Hey, good Monday morning. 41 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 65 today. News sponsored by Pastor Camp Heating and Air Conditioning at 303-777-1234 to learn more about special savings opportunities on Lennox equipment. Broncos in a minute. Our top story, Denver police investigating a shooting that happened in northeast Denver early this morning, east of Pena, on North Tower Road Boulevard, south of East 60th Avenue near DIA. One person was taken to the hospital and their condition not reported. Investigation on the suspect and the case is underway. The son of Hollywood director Rob Reiner has been arrested, according to TMZ, after Reiner and his wife were found dead inside their L.A. home, apparently the victims of a stabbing. The director's son, Nick, has been open in the past about his struggles with drug addiction and his tumultuous relationship with his father. DJT is blaming the deaths on TDS. In a post this morning, 47 claimed his death was, quote, reportedly due to the anger he caused others through his massive, unyielding, and incurable infliction with a mind-crippling disease known as TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome. DJT added that Reiner, quote, was known to have driven people crazy by his raging obsession of President Trump. He ended with the post with, quote, may Rob and Michelle rest in peace. Reiner was 78 years old, while Michelle was 68. Authorities looking for a suspect related to a shooting at Brown University over the weekend. It comes after a person of interest who had been detained was released. 2 people were killed and 9 others were injured. At least 15 people are dead and 40 others remain hospitalized after an Islamo-terrorist opened fire at Bondi Beach in Sydney, Australia. Officials say the shooters were father and son. Happened at a Jewish celebration at Sydney Beach that left at least 15 dead and dozens wounded. All right, on Sunday, the Packers at the Broncos on Sunday at Mile High Stadium, and Denver going for 11 straight wins. End of the third, the Broncos down 23-21.
On a 2nd and 15. Nix to the end zone. Franklin has it. Touchdown, Broncos.
Bo Nix to Troy Franklin. Gorgeous pass and catch to take the lead 34-26. The final, Nix threw for 302 yards, 4 touchdown passes. Cortland Sutton, 7 catches, 113 yards, and a touchdown. Late in the game, the Packers with the ball, trying to come back on 4th and 10.
Packers have got to have it. Not going to get a pass away. The Orange Rush.
Defense too tough. Big win for the Broncos. And here's the quarterback, Bo Nix. Now 12-2. The Broncos proving he can lead this team to a championship.
Well, thanks a lot. And Bo, congratulations. What a game. You guys came in winners of 10 straight, now 11, but you were the underdogs. What did this team show against a really difficult Packers team?
That we're the overdogs.
What was the biggest difference today? What really changed the momentum down the stretch?
I think every unit played great. We had key plays in all units. Defense just kept playing at the end, and they got stop after stop after stop. They got 2 really big turnovers, and then offensively we got touchdowns today instead of field goals.
The 10-4 Jags at the Broncos coming up this Sunday. Kansas City quarterback Patrick Mahomes tears his ACL. The Chiefs will not be in the playoffs for the first time since 2014. 44-year-old grandfather Phillip Rivers, 18 of 27, had a touchdown pass and an interception, but they lose to Seattle 18-16 after a field goal on the road. But he's hoping that they can win 3 more games and possibly get the Colts into the postseason. Shadur Sanders, 3 interceptions, sacked 5 times, 31-3 loss to the Bears. And good news here, away from sports. Candace Owens and Erica Kirk say they are going to meet in person and talk and postpone the live stream and any social media on the subject of the assassination for now.
Blake, I want to ask you about this.
Boo. Boo.
Yes,
Billy wanted a public throwdown, huh?
He
Yeah,
did.
I did.
He did. He needed to see that.
Yeah, I did.
Needed some theme music underneath it, too.
Now, what do you think is going to come out of that, Mr. Thorpe?
Oh, me?
And Blake?
Here, I'll let Blake go first, yeah.
No, go ahead, Billy.
I don't think, well, here's the thing. It depends on the leverage side of things. If Candace really believes what she believes, then there's nothing really that Erica is going to be able to do to dissuade her. But if she walks out of this meeting and says, oh, all my questions have been answered, and then nothing, then it's going to appear as if the conspiracy has taken her over. That somehow she now is part of the larger conspiracy. I think this is nothing more than a minefield for Candace.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Is she a part of it now? Goodness.
What do you think, Jeff?
I think Candace Owens is in dope. She's painted herself into a corner here. So she's going to have one of 2 options coming out of this. One, to Bill's point, if she comes out and says, look, I had sat down with Erica. I had a lot of my questions answered. She looks like just an idiot conspiracy theorist, which is what she is. And she's going to have to admit that a lot of the stuff she talked about was total baloney, which it is. Okay, Turning Point had nothing to do with this. Erica had nothing to do with this, okay? So she's going to have to admit to everybody that she's been an idiot all along. Or she's going to have to double down and go, Erica didn't clearly answer all my questions. She's clearly in on it. And then she's just going to continue with the conspiracy theories, which is where I think she's going to go.
I don't think she's an idiot. I think she's really smart. And I think that she is going to unveil some things that Erica has no idea that are going on. I'm guessing that's what's going to happen. But we have 3 potential scenarios here from all 3 of us. And, yeah, I don't know. It could get ugly, or it could be a great thing. Hopefully it'll be a great thing, and they'll understand more and Candace gets her questions that she wants answered, and I think Erica is going to learn some more about the people who work in her organization.
Blake.
Yes.
Candace
Yes.
Owens has burned bridges with Prager, with
Yes, I
Daily
know.
Wire, with
I know.
Turning Point.
Well, with
there is a
hold on now,
reason
not
that
with
she's
Prager,
ended up
with
with all these burned bridges. It's because eventually her bosses have had enough of her idiocy, and they just move her on, and she just goes. She is not.
Possibly.
She's not talented. She's a dope.
Oh, I think she's very talented. But and I don't think she's a dope, and she's just asking questions, and there's nothing wrong with that. And we'll see what happens. Absolutely, she has burned bridges. Hey, she said this is war with everyone involved. She wants to get to the truth, and the only way you get to the truth is by asking questions. So let it continue. We'll have an update tomorrow or the rest of the week. Every segment. I mean, if we have to, because this is fascinating. And it's important, too. 40 in Aurora, 39 in Lakewood, 41 in Denver. You're waking up with Jeff and Bill. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Mild air from the Pacific continues to dominate for another week. We're going to see temperatures well in the mid to upper 60s today, 30s to near 40 tomorrow, and lower 60s Tuesday, low to mid 60s Wednesday. It is going to be colder Thursday behind a cold front. That cold front will bring snow to the high country Wednesday night, and Thursday morning. But just a slight chance for a few showers here along the Front Range Wednesday night and Thursday, but Thursday will be cooler. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
This is a great version of the song. But
I was going to say, is this a racist version of the song?
No, this song is not racist, despite what Joy Reid said. That's not the history of the song. Yeah, it was performed during minstrel times, but that's because slaying songs were popular. It's nothing more than following a trend. It's not a racist song, Joy Reid. You're wrong. And this is a great version. Sinatra's version of Jingle Bells.
Well,
this is cool.
Speaking of racism, let's get to Nick Fuentes, who is a racist. I'm so glad I saw this article from my friend John Stonestreet in the Daily Citizen. Check out Daily Citizen, by the way. It's the daily publication by Focus on the Family. dailycitizen.focusonthefamily.com. Great work there. Joining us now is John Stonestreet, president of the Colson Center. Good morning, John. Thanks for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yes, good morning, sir.
Good morning, guys. Great to be on with you.
All right. So this is how I felt about Fuentes, and I feel like you covered it as well. I'm like, if you took the way the libs think about the world and then just flipped it 180, you wouldn't get a conservative worldview. You would get a weird race, gender-obsessed version of the left just on the other side of things, and that's kind of what Nick Fuentes does. So, for instance, when he talks about race, the Republicans and conservatives would generally go, well, the reason we don't like what the left's doing is because it's race obsession. We shouldn't be obsessed about race. It doesn't matter. It's just skin tone. The Republican Party was founded by recognizing the inherent dignity and worth of all people, regardless of their race. But Nick Fuentes just jumps to the other side and argues that race is really important and pushes back by just doing the same thinking that the left does. You talk about this in your article, Nick Fuentes' Feminism for Men. Tell us about the article.
Well, listen, it's interesting because I think what we see with Fuentes, but really the popularity of the Groyper movement among young men is both the result of feminism, but it's also the mirror of feminism. I mean, what is feminism? I mean, and I don't mean first-wave feminism. First-wave feminism corrected some really important injustices and expanded some, important rights that women deserve. But when feminism became hijacked by the sexual revolution, then it basically created this, eternal war between two groups of people, men and women. I mean, that's what Fuentes' framework is that there is this war. For him, on the other side are people who are non-white and, of course, women. He kind of talks about women in the same sort of horrible way that he talks about ethnic minorities and different races and so on. And he sees, and this is something that Alexander Solzhenitsyn in The Great Russian Dissident talked about, right? Which he said, the problem is thinking that there's this one group of people that is the source of all that's wrong with the world, and if we could just rid the world of that group of people, then all would be well. But Solzhenitsyn went on to say, but the line of good and evil isn't between nations or groups, or I would say between men and women or different races. It runs right down the middle of the human heart. And so real conservatism stands on that universal principle. It doesn't kind of point out what's wrong in some sort of victim status. And that's the other, by the way, I think the other way that the Fuentes version of Graperism resembles feminism. It's a perpetual victimhood, right? It's not based on anything noble. It's not a vision of what's good about life in the world. It's only a victim status, which is the flip side of critical theory, right? The whole thing that the right has been kind of trying to uproot, this perpetual narrative of oppressed oppression. But in Fuentes' version, who's the oppressed and who's the oppressor just gets flipped upside down.
You're exactly right. That's John Stonestreet. We're talking about his latest piece in the Daily Citizen titled Nick Fuentes' Feminism for Men. John, why do you think Fuentes has been so appealing, particularly to young white men with his attitudes? I mean, in many ways, it would be so off-putting. It takes 30 seconds to see him openly espouse anti-Semitic beliefs, racist, talks about beating women. I mean, it seems horrible, but it's not just Fuentes. You have Andrew Tate as well, kind of appealing. What is the root of that appeal, and how do Christians reason into that and try to help debunk it?
Yeah, let me give you three answers to that. The first is the historic answer. I mean, there is just something historic, I would say supernatural, about the perpetuation of anti-Semitism in all forms. So you see it pop up throughout human history. It's almost like this is, a chosen people that has this kind of, I mean, it's almost like the biblical account here makes some sense. But that's the kind of the meta explanation of it. But another explanation of it, I think, that is really important, and this is what I meant earlier when I said the irony is that Fuentes' feminism for men is the result of feminism. And listen, white men have been told that they're the problem with the world, that there's no form of their identity that's not toxic, right? I mean, what a hopeless title and stamp, label to be put on an entire group of people. And I think that there have been a lot of, young men that have been told that, and they're tired of it, and they're looking for, some other way to be themselves. I mean, they can't stop being themselves. I mean, that's what's so devastating and damning about the woke ideology and racism, is that you condemn an entire group of people, not based on their behavior, but based on who they are, things that they actually can't change about who they are. And I think that there is a reaction to that. I think people are looking for, something to believe in. I think, in other words, what we're seeing in terms of the rise of interest in kind of Fuentes' Groyperism and these kind of influencers who are so transgressive in how they talk about race and so on. I think it's a reflection also of what we see young men going to church. They're just looking for answers, and many of them are looking for answers, I think, in all the wrong places.
John Stonestreet is the president of the Colson Center. So, John, how do you respond to it? I got an email from Nick Fuentes, or someone associated with him years and years and years ago, wanting to speak at the Western Conservative Summit. I had no idea who he was. I was the chairman of the summit along with Don Sweeting. And so I went to go watch his videos, and within 30 seconds realized that he was not a conservative. So how do we help people understand that what Fuentes and Tate push is not actually conservative?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, what you displayed there was a level of discernment. And unfortunately, it's a level of discernment that we're not seeing across leaders on the right and even among so-called Christian leaders on the right. And so I think the first answer is to condemn what needs to be condemned. The second answer is don't platform what should never be platformed. And you have the horse sense to do that, and it's an astonishing thing to watch an awful lot of people who basically say, well, if you're on my side, if we have the same enemy, then we believe the same things. And that is not the case at all. That's not a position that I think conservatism should take, much less Christian conservatism. I mean, the word, the meaning is in the word itself, isn't it, Jeff? Like, what is it that we're going to conserve? Christians and Christian conservatives have to stand on principle that every single person is made in the image and likeness of God, has moral capacity and moral responsibility and moral accountability, and that we should structure our society around eternal truths, not out of this kind of perpetual reverse victim status. We should never tolerate any sort of racism, particularly this kind of anti-Semitism that completely pops up. And by the way, I think this is a third reason. I forgot to get to the third reason that we're seeing this again, is that young people today, especially young men, don't know history. And the idea, of course, of the 20th century is we saw what the damage that anti-Semitism can do. And if young people aren't taught that, and we're not great at teaching our young people civic history, then it's going to pop up. That also is an answer to this question. What do we need to do? We need to teach young people history. We need to reach out to young men. Right now, churches in particular have an incredible opportunity to reach out and mentor and embrace and deal with young men. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem like that many churches are prepared for this. I've got a whole row of young men sitting at my church. I talk to pastors and I talk to leaders and I talk to folks all the time who have that row of young men at their church too. Lean in, talk to them, bring them on board. They're looking for things to believe in. It's an opportunity that we have, and I hope we don't miss it.
That's John Stone Street, president of the Colson Center. He's got a great piece in the Daily Citizen, the daily publication by Focus on the Family. Nick Fuentes' Feminism for Men. I think, John, too, we don't really teach what conservatism believes in our, particularly in our government-run education program. So I would often say that I was publicly educated in Colorado, went to all through the Cherry Creek High School system, from elementary all the way through high school, then went on to a Christian liberal arts school in California, which was supposed to be conservative. It really wasn't. And my wife and I often talk about we were never really exposed to what it means to be a conservative, right? To be able to articulate that, to be able to defend free market capitalism, for instance, until we got to Washington, D.C. and started hanging around people and attending events at like the Heritage Foundation. So we were fully educated all the way through not only government-run education, but Christian higher education. And if you ask me at the end of all that, what it meant to be a conservative, to really believe in limited government, a strong civil society, the central role of faith, of personal responsibility, of free market capitalism, to be able to not only articulate that, but to defend why it's superior to other worldviews, that wasn't going to happen. So we actually had to find it on our own, and you guys kind of do this with the Colson Fellows program, is to help people try to understand that. But to the average person educated in America in 2025, they have no experience with this. So they're going to fall for whether it's a woke worldview or I would say another form of woke view, which is the Nick Fuentes worldview. I think it's all part of a lack of serious education. Your thoughts?
Oh, completely. I would use the word formation. I mean, really, this is what Christian discipleship is supposed to be, right? This is what Jesus told his disciples: go in and make disciples of all nations, teach them to obey everything that I have commanded. And we have kind of so privatized Christianity in the Christian setting that it's really just about this personal relationship with me and Jesus. Hey, the good news is that Christianity is about a personal relationship with you and Jesus, how you can be forgiven of your sins, have an eternal relationship with your Creator. And if that's all there was to the system, it would still be really good news. But the Bible basically begins with the story of creation. It gives us the foundation and grounding of these eternal principles upon which all these other things flow. And you're exactly right. I mean, we have an education system that doesn't even give us an American history. It doesn't even give us an understanding of the first principles you found in the Constitution. Christian discipleship should involve Christian formation in the principles of truth and beauty and goodness and image of God and human value and human dignity and all these things. And all the things that you said you were never taught, they all flow from these foundational principles. So you're absolutely right. Now, I do have good news in all this, Jeff, which is the resources are out there, both on the American history front and on the Christian worldview front. Yeah, we've got the Colson Fellows program. This is a way for adults to get caught up to speed. I was really moved at Charlie Kirk's memorial service to hear Dr. Larry Arnn talk about how Charlie felt like he didn't get that education, so he went through 31 of Hillsdale courses, right? Hillsdale College. I'm a fan of Hillsdale College in a lot of ways, and to hear that Charlie, even while he was leading this organization, did 31 of those courses, that's remarkable. And that should challenge all of us to be more like Charlie and less like Nick.
That is John Stone Street, president of the Colson Center, joining Jeff and Bill live. We're talking about a piece he recently wrote about Nick Fuentes, and he accurately describes it. Many of Fuentes' claims are basically a 180-degree flip of what you'd consider basic liberal ideology of the idea of the oppressor and the oppressed. He just flips the sides on that. Now, Mr. Stone Street, one of the things I wanted to go through is recently, I think it's Rod Dreher, who wrote on Substack about some experiences and conversations he had while in and around Washington, D.C. He's been there for a while, left, and then he's come back. And he said a lot of things really surprised him. And where I want to go with it were two things that he said. He said that in conversations that he had with people, not just individual conservatives and Republicans, but inside of that ecosystem, that there were estimates of somewhere between 30 and 40% of those people that are Republicans working behind the scenes in D.C. that are Gen Z and below are followers of Fuentes. And the other thing that he thought was problematic was that in some circles, their Christian beliefs didn't insulate them. In fact, it strengthened their cause in believing that Fuentes was right. And so I kind of want to have just your impressions on that, because when I saw those numbers, again, it is just one author is talking about one set of experiences he had inside of Washington, D.C. So it can be, a little bit of, just kind of an example. But I think that I'm curious about your feelings on that. Do you think that 30 to 40%, again, not across the country, just focused in Washington, D.C., could actually be followers of Nick Fuentes? And what do you think about the writer's implication that a Christian theology didn't necessarily insulate some of these followers and, in fact, strengthen their resolve to follow Fuentes?
Well, it's a good question. I joined a whole bunch of other people in big alarm reading Rod's piece, and I'm a friend and fan of Rod's in a lot of ways. I thought maybe he was overstating it. It put me on a mission of asking a lot of my connections in Washington, D.C., what they see. And I think, the best that I can figure out, it's probably a bit of an overstatement, that 30 to 40%, but it is big enough to be a real problem. This is a real problem on the right. This is a fox in the hen house. This is something that has to be addressed on the right. And so I think it points to something serious and something real. And I could tell you that it's more than just kind of a handful of people, in somebody's basement, and more than just kind of bots and, people that are hired in, other parts of the world to kind of be trolls online, which is what how some people have described this. We've gotten enough feedback on this piece, not to mention other pieces that we have done, including on Tucker Carlson's interview on Fuentes, to know that, no, it's real. And I think there's actually, it's more than just two groups here that we're dealing with, like kind of neocon classic conservatives on one hand, and then, the Fuentes group, on the other hand. There's this kind of middle ground that I think is looking for allies and looking for explanations, looking, as I said earlier, for something to believe in. So I think there's a big group of maybe not kind of Fuentes devotees, but Fuentes apologists, or maybe Fuentes adjacent kind of thinking, where they're willing to kind of coddle around and entertain a level of anti-Semitism And in order to accomplish what they consider to be the greater good, which is, basically having a tougher form of conservatism. They don't believe that the neocons work. I kind of share that critique, but we don't have to tolerate or create space for anti-Semitic, completely misogynistic views. I understand that those words are often thrown around inappropriately, but in this case, they're absolutely appropriate. We don't have to tolerate or create space for that in the movement, right? We can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can say that this is right and this is wrong, and stand on principle first and foremost, rather than some kind of Nietzschean, amoral, kind of will to power. That's not what conservatism is, but that's what his form of conservatism is this kind of Nietzschean will to power thing. So I share the concern. It may not be as bad as the article put it, but it's there, and it has to be addressed. And I think the way to do that, to Jeff's point earlier, is education. It's formation, particularly those of us that understand a Christian worldview, that these eternal truths of God and the world kind of shape how we should think about public life. And if it does that, we need to stand on those truths and be willing to call balls and strikes where we need to do that.
That's John Stonestreet, president of the Colson Center. We're talking about a piece he recently authored, talking about the impact of Nick Fuentes on the conservative movement right now. And we're referring back to a piece on Substack, Rod Dreher. I'm so excited that you read that. You have no idea how much my intellectual juices are flowing right now.
I told you John was a smart guy.
Fantastic. Okay, John, now I want to look. One of the things that Rod had said where we started with was the idea that there may be 30 to 40% of those that consider themselves to be a conservative or Republican that are behind the scenes in D.C. being followers to some extent or another of Nick Fuentes. So it's not that every follower is the same, but like you said, there's some that are also adjacent. Rod was concerned about there also ties to the Catholic religion and Christianity, using that as a justification. But further on down inside of his piece, he goes a layer deeper, which is exactly where you went. The idea of Nietzsche and the idea of nihilism and the idea of, could part of this not necessarily mean that they're really hardcore followers of Fuentes, but instead are just trying to burn the system, that this is a means to an end, that they will go along with this as long as it gets them to their desired destination. What do you think the real motivation is behind this? Could it really be that they're following Fuentes, or could it be something deeper that Rod was talking about and you just touched on, the idea that this is just a means to an end?
Oh, yeah. Listen, to subquote C.S. Lewis in Narnia when he's like, Plato, it's all in Plato. I'll go Nietzsche, it's all in Nietzsche. And specifically what I mean is it's all in a parable that he wrote called The Parable of the Madman, in which he described where the death of God was going to take a society. Now, at the time, he was writing to a group of atheists that believed that science was going to save the day. Nietzsche realized that if you untethered the world from God, and he believed we should, he just knew that it was going to be a rough couple decades, and he predicted that the 20th century was going to be rough. But he also predicted that there was going to be a thorough kind of loss of meaning and loss of beauty and loss of truth, not even knowing what's up and down and right and wrong and left and right and so on. And I think it's one thing to kind of think through that worldview philosophically or intellectually, which a lot of us do for a living because we're weird like that. It's another thing to recognize that our culture has this running as part of its mood. And there is an entire group of people that have been told that they are what's wrong with the world, but they don't have any tethering to be able to discern or understand that. And so they're just grasping for whatever it is. And Nietzsche recognized and predicted that if you're not tethered to God, what you're going to grasp for is power. And it's going to be kind of an anger, a frustration that drives it. One of my mentors would often say, outrage is not a strategy. Well, in this movement, outrage is a strategy. Victimhood is a strategy. Frustration is a strategy. So I don't know if the question is, what are they following Fuentes or following Nietzsche? My guess is most of them have never read Nietzsche that are attracted to this sort of stuff. Fuentes is giving a popular voice to this Nietzschean idea, and it's the natural consequence of forgetting what life is all about, and it's the natural consequence of being blamed for everything that's wrong with the world. So I can see where it came from. It's just a very, very dangerous a very, very dangerous view. And it's certainly not a view that can build. And that's the thing that's always been about all postmodern philosophies, and this is a kind of a stepchild of postmodernism in a lot of ways. Postmodernism is all about deconstruction. It's not about construction. It's all about tearing down. It's not about building up. And you're seeing this, right? You're seeing this from this movement where, all norms, all beliefs, all understanding of human dignity and that sort of stuff should just be torn down, and the only virtue, if you can find one, is self-preservation. And that's a Nietzschean view. It's not something that you can certainly rebuild a society around.
That's John Stonestreet, president of the Colson Center. If you're listening to him and something peaks inside you, gosh, I want to go further down this, or I want to talk to all the parents and grandparents out there. If your child or grandchild came to you today and said, what does it mean to be a conservative? What is a conservative? And you couldn't answer that question, or you stumble around, you don't have the tools to be able to do that, or you want to guide your family to embrace Christian conservative values, but you don't know where to start, I want to encourage you to go to colsonfellows.org. colsonfellows.org. Join up with John Stonestreet. I almost called you John Colson. John Stonestreet. Join up with John Stonestreet and be a part of the Colson Fellows program. It will be life-changing for you. John, we weren't expecting to go down this road, but I want to give you a quick minute because I think it's so apropos to this conversation. If someone wanted to be a Colson Fellow, tell them what that program's all about.
Yeah, it's a 9-month deep dive. If you felt like you haven't quite understood the whole framework of Christianity in terms of not just its truth for personal salvation, but what it means that the world is created, what it means that humans are made in the image of God, what are the implications of morality for public life, what does it mean to believe that not only God created you, but he put you in this time and this place. That's what the Fellows program is. We have 1,700 people right now that are going on a deep dive on Christian worldview, understanding the cultural issues, and developing a plan for leadership in their own spheres of influence. Colson Fellow courses start every August, and then they go until May. So we're in the middle of a class right now, and we have another group considering it, and applications open up in a month or so. So again, colsonfellows.org, you can apply, you can learn more about the program, you can see what the course of study looks like. This all happens within small groups, so either small groups in one of our church affiliates or small groups in one of our regional cohorts. And it's a way of kind of going deeper. And that's what we find. We find a lot of Christians who just say, you know what I see out there is too confusing and too complicated for my understanding of the Christian life. We want to bring those into alignment. I'll encourage you, Jeff, encourage our listeners. The Christian worldview is big enough. It's big enough, right? It's big enough because it's true. It's not just true for me and true for Christians. It's true with a capital T. And what that means is that it becomes the framework by which we can make sense of life in the world. And that's what this program was about when Chuck Colson imagined it over a decade ago. And it's fun to watch how God uses people where he has placed them and uses this program in order to catalyze that.
He's absolutely one of the best thinkers out there. Go spend time with John Stonestreet through the Colson Fellows program. He also has a daily broadcast with Breakpoint. So honored to spend some time with you today. Thank you, John Stonestreet.
Yes, thank you. This has been a treat,
Jeff.
sir.
Great to be with you both.
Yes,
yeah,
and Merry
bet.
Christmas.
Thanks,
this is fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. You've been more than generous. This was amazing.
You bet.
John Stonestreet, his latest piece in the Daily Citizen, which is a daily publication by Focus on the Family. If you go to dailycitizen.focusonthefamily.com. All right, we'll continue. Feel free to join the conversation by giving us a call, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law Text line, 720-819-5115. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710, CanUS. This is the Christmas Carol that nobody wanted to make. Couldn't get it produced.
No one wanted to do it with Ray Charles? I feel like anything
no.
Ray touched turned to
No,
gold.
Ray's not the original one that did this. It is only
the
because
original
of
one
yeah.
they
Nobody wanted to produce
okay.
the song. This is only because of Eddie Cantor in the mid-'30s in his radio show that it even became popular. It was written by one of the writers on his show, but they couldn't get anybody to do it because it was viewed as a kid's